Welcome to the Thriving Christian Artist, the podcast where we hope you connect with God to bust through the roadblocks that have held you back for years, create the work you love, and really live the life you know God created you to live as an artist in His kingdom. I'm Matt Thomas, your host. Let's get started. Well, hey everybody, it's Matt, and welcome to the podcast today. I'm so excited that you're with me. I think I've got a great episode for you today. We're actually talking with a member of my Created to Thrive artist mentoring program, Deborah Nell. She's an incredible painter and does some cool things with paint. You're going to love her work. You can, of course, get a link to her website and social media stuff inside the show notes. But Deborah she's got a great story. She's been in the mentoring program for a lot of years, but I think coming on maybe 2.5, 3 years. But she tells the story of, basically how when she started out, she had a complete misunderstanding of how the kingdom worked and God's, plan for her creativity. She did not know how all that worked together. And she's really got an incredible journey and story about how the Lord began to reshape that. And she began to align with God's purposes for her life. And she's seeing incredible results now, not only artistically and spiritually, but also in sales, and her business is growing, and it's exciting. I love it. It's thriving, y'all. Thriving, y'all. We need to do a t-shirt for that, right? It's thriving, y'all. Well, listen, as we're getting started today, I want to let you know about a very special video series that I'm doing. It's actually starting on September 10th called Artists Rise Up. You may have seen some of it on social media already, but listen, it's focused on helping you get super clear on the vision of what it means to be a thriving artist in God's kingdom, and also how to overcome the 5 most common roadblocks that all of us Christian artists face in our journey, and how to deal with those, but then start accelerating your growth so that you can start seeing immediate results in your life, spiritually, artistically, and whether God's called you in business or in ministry. This series is going to speak specifically to those things. Now, listen, many of you are new to the podcast. Many of you have been following me for years, but just to give you a little background, back in 2009, God called me to raise up an army of artists to reveal His glory in the earth. And since then, literally thousands of artists all over the world have responded through books and conferences and the mentoring program and the podcast and all of that. Maybe that's the reason you're listening to the podcast right now, is that you want to be a part of what God's doing in this generation as an artist. And so that's the ultimate purpose behind everything that I do, is to help artists just like you to connect with God and understand your calling as somebody that's been called in the kingdom, to get healed from and whole, from the junk that has held you back for years, and really get equipped to start thriving again in your spiritual life, in your art life, and then in your business or ministry life, so that you can really do what God's called you to do in the marketplace. So that's what the series is all about. Again, it's called Artists Rise Up, starting September the 10th. It's completely free. All you got to do is register. We do require that you register. You can click the link right now in the show notes to get the link. Register. You'll go to a little page. There's a video that tells you all about the series. You can just drop in your email, your first name and email address, and then go and check your email to make sure that it doesn't go to spam, so that you can get all of the reminders that we'll send you and that sort of thing about the series. It starts on September 10th. We'll drop one video a day during that time, and then toward the end, we'll let you binge watch them all at once too. But it's exciting. It's going to be a great series. It's a great way to kick off the fall, and also it's a great way to kick off the last opportunity to be a part of the Created to Thrive Artist Mentoring Program. We're closing the doors at the end of September, and so we want to make sure that everybody that wants to be a part of this army of artists and be equipped in everything that God's called them to can do that before September 21st this year. So be sure to register for that series. It's going to be a great encouragement to you. Everybody's going to be talking about it. It's going to be awesome. I hope it's going to be a real blessing to you in your life. All right. Now, before we jump into that interview, all right, I want to give a big shout out to one of my awesome podcast listeners who's listening over on iTunes, Jen Allward. Thank you, Jen, for for your review and for subscribing to the podcast. She says, this podcast is encouraging and helpful. Matt Tommey's podcast and mentoring program are such a huge wealth of information. Personal healing, spiritual growth, practical ways to build your artistic skills and business are all covered. His voice conveys warmth, encouragement, and joy. If you're struggling and want to grow with your artistic side of life, check this podcast and his website and mentoring program out. Well, Jen, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for subscribing, for listening, for obviously being a part of the mentoring program and sharing the love with a podcast review. It really does mean a lot to me, and it lets other folks know, what God's doing on the podcast. So thanks very, very much. All right. Well, hey, listen, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that right now, wherever you're listening. Just hit the subscribe button on your podcast player of choice. Most of those you can also review if you're on Google Play or iTunes or any other Podbean. You can click leave a review and leave a review for your thoughts about the podcast too. That always encourages me and encourages other folks that are listening to the podcast. All right. Well, hey, without further ado, let's jump into this great interview that I did with artist Deborah Nell. Well, everybody, I'm so excited to have my friend Deborah Nell on the podcast with me today. Deborah and I have known each other for quite a number of years through the Creative to Thrive mentoring program and through conferences that she's come to, and just getting to know her story. Deborah, I'm just so glad to be able to talk to you today and hear more of your story. So thanks for being here.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just asking some folks this month to share their story about transformation, and we did a video on you, what was it, last year, I guess,
Yeah.
about the incredible stuff that has been going on in your life since you've been a part of the mentoring program, and
Mm-hmm.
your business is growing, your art's growing, your confidence is growing, all of that. And take us, kind of roll the tape back a little bit and tell everybody who you are, how you started out as an artist, that sort of thing. And then we'll get into kind of some of the change that's really happened in your life, because it's so exciting.
Okay. Well, I'm a 60-year-old Christian woman who is a native of Southern California. My husband and I, we moved to South Central Pennsylvania 20 years ago with my daughter. She was 5 at the time. We just felt the Lord leading us to come out here. And so we did, and definitely meant to be here. So I paint a lot. I paint on Yupo paper, a slick synthetic paper. I also create embellished acrylic pours on canvas. And with both of those two mediums, I look for images in the paint. I don't usually pre-plan my paintings.
That's what's so exciting about your work. I think you had this really spontaneous, kind of process, but then you really see intention in every piece.
Yeah. And that's not how it was growing up or even years ago. That's something that's kind of, God has developed that, and it's not something I even intentionally tried to do initially, but it's just kind of been part of the journey, part of the process. Yeah.
Awesome. When did you, just curiosity wise, when did you start to really know that there was a connection between what you were doing creatively and your spiritual life? When did you start to sense that in your own journey?
Well, that would have been 2007. Prior to that time, I would just paint more as a hobby. I had a bachelor's degree in design from UCLA. I knew early on that I wanted to paint or draw, and went through the process of getting a degree and all that, and had a degree. And then once I got my degree, I realized I didn't want to paint or create for what other people wanted me to do. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, but I just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the confidence. So I just put that aside and just would create things as a hobby. But then in 2007, things really changed. I had a dream, and in this dream, God made it clear that He wanted me to fly with my art, and I flew in the dream. And it was through that dream I really sensed Him saying, "I want you to paint for me." And so then it was just like, okay, it's not a matter of confidence or courage; it's just obedience. And when I said yes, then that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to paint. And so my confidence encouraged again to grow as I started to paint. And I was shortly after that introduced to Yupo paper by an abstract artist. And prior to then, all of my paintings would be, I would look at photographs of people usually and paint what I saw. But when I saw this man working on Yupo paper with blowing acrylic ink on the paper, and I took 2 classes from him because I just thought it was just really exciting. And I kept seeing images in the paint, and I thought, I got to go home. I got to just do what I'm feeling led to do, which is just bring out those images that I see. And so that was in 2007, and I continued to work on Yupo paper, and then discovered acrylic pours after entering your mentoring group, because you really encouraged us to, when you're at an event, get to know different people. And so I remember being drawn to this one abstract artist. She had been doing acrylic pours. I had never seen them before. I said, what is this? This is beautiful. And she told me what they were. She said, oh, you can go on YouTube. You can learn how to do it by doing that. So I did. And I did one acrylic pour, and it was abstract. But I kept looking at it. I kept seeing images in it. And I thought, okay. Next time I do one, I'm going to bring out the images that I see. And I've been doing that for, I guess, 3 years now. And I just, there's something about my brain. It just wants to bring out images, and a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I do.
Well, and I think it's one of the things that really makes you so unique in the marketplace too, is that you take this really spontaneous process and, that kind of looks like beautiful chaos, but then you begin to really bring order to that and structure to that. And that's been a big part of, I think, as I look at your art, it's a big part of what I would call, your style. Would you agree?
I would agree. And what's interesting is that when I first started doing the paintings on Yupo paper, I wasn't thinking, okay, now I need to develop a style. Like, that didn't even occur to me. I just was having fun, working with the paint and doing what came natural to me, which was bringing out images. And because I had been trained as a young child by my father, he's an artist as well, he would teach me how to paint portraits from photographs in oil. So I kept seeing people in the paint, but if I didn't see the features of their faces, I wouldn't bring them out. So what has developed is a style of a lot of faceless people. And wow. So
that's so cool. Now, one of the things I love about your stories that you mentioned previously is that there was a real definitive time in your journey where you said yes to the Lord, and that you began to open the door. I think one of the struggles that a lot of people can have, though, is that even though they have said yes to the Lord, or they have that kind of defining moment in their life like you did, there can still be those times of plateau or feeling like a struggle, or what am I doing? And I know you went through that as well. You kind of felt like a place that, I'm doing everything I know to do. I kind of feel like I've reached a plateau, and you even said, you kind of felt like you were treading water a little bit. Talk about that, and then the transformation that began to happen through that.
Yeah. So I was at a place, and that was just prior to becoming a member of your mentoring group. I had been painting professionally and selling my work for a few years, and I wasn't growing as an artist. Like I said, I was kind of treading water, and I knew that there was more, but I just didn't know how to get there. And when I saw, about your group, and I thought, what, that's what I need. I need somebody that knows the ropes and to show me what to do. And so becoming a member of the group was so pivotal for me, because to be surrounded by other Christian artists in the group, and to then being encouraged, and also just to know the steps that you were talking, like how to do a website, just real specific things that, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And as I started doing those things began to change. Momentum started growing, and it was very, very powerful for me to be a part of your group. Yeah. And just saying yes to that.
I think technology can be one of the big, roadblocks for a lot of people. And,
absolutely.
And I've heard over the years, it's like, and I know this is for me too, some of us just need somebody to show us how to do it.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of one of the things that the mentoring program is it's like, it's not like I'm up here and you're down there, or there's different levels of people. It's like, we're all
Hmm.
bringing what we do well, but we're just like, if I could just have somebody tell me how to do this, or if I could
Yes.
just ask a question, and understand that I
Yes.
can do it, but I just
Yes.
don't know where to start.
That's right. And that's what's so great about the group, because I've had people ask me things and I've asked people things, and so it's a give and take, and we're all growing. We're all at different places. There's always
That's right.
somebody, more advanced than us, and there's always somebody we can help that's, not as far along as we are, which is wonderful.
That's what I love.
Yeah, me
Because,
too.
I think back, because you were one of the original members
Uh-huh.
of Creative Thrive. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
with me a long time. So, I mean, as you look back, as you look at
Mhm.
where you are now, and
Yeah.
I follow you on Facebook, so I'm seeing you're at shows and you're connecting with people and
Hmm.
you're doing, trunk sales at your studio and all this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun for me. It's like my kids, I'm looking out and going, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. And, I mean, that's exciting, isn't it?
it,
Just
it
to see all that happen.
It is. It is. And it's exciting for us to see when you do so well. It's like, oh, wow. And when I recently got a large commission painting that's 40 by 50. And it's like, whoa, so this is kind of what Matt does all the time. These big, and it's like you had provided the roadmap. And it was just great to know, what the next step was going to be. So, yeah.
I just think it's so important, when I, I mean, I've said this a lot of times before to people, but I was as surprised as anybody when the Lord began to transform what had been my hobby for years,
Mm-hmm.
into something that I could succeed in the marketplace. And
Yeah.
for those that don't know, I make woven sculpture out of essentially weeds. I mean,
And they're beautiful.
invasive vines and all this kind of stuff. But when that began to happen, I asked the Lord, and He was like, "I'm the same thing I'm doing in your work. It's kind of like a prophetic declaration, a
Yeah.
foreshadowing of what I want to do in other artists." And
Mm.
I don't know, as I just kind of began to share the things that He was doing in my life and how my journey unfolded, and said, "Hey, well, if you do it, I wonder if it'll work for you too." And here we are all these years later, and it has, and it's so exciting for me, because to me, it's like, this is how the kingdom works.
Yes.
And if it's God's no respecter of persons, if He's done it in my life, and if He's done it in your life, then of
Mm-hmm.
course He wants to do it in other people's lives. And
Absolutely.
our role is just to be the encouragement for others along the journey, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now,
Absolutely.
I know that you talked about, just as we were getting to hear your story before this
Mm-hmm.
interview, that your income had kind of been hanging around the same level for
Mm-hmm.
several years, but then
Mm-hmm.
this last year your income,
Mm-hmm.
boom, starting to
It did.
increase. You're starting to
Yeah.
get more confidence. Talk about some of the real practical things, because I think some people think, well, I'm not looking for somebody just to help me feel better about myself. I'm looking for some real, tangible results. So what have some of those been for you as you look back on your journey so far?
Well, I think, one thing is creating a website, because that's how this person in Texas found me.
Right.
Not just any website, but a website that it works and looks nice, and that all came through your group, and just getting myself out there. And then when people ask me, well, what do you do? Being able to tell them in a way that they can relate to, and knowing that when people buy your work, it's because they feel a connection either to you or your work, or both. And they're not going to feel a connection if they never see it. So they've got to
Right.
see it, whether it's in person or online, and just that being kind of stressed, and how to do that. So how do you get your work out there? I mean, there's tons of different ways, and for me, it's like art shows. It's right now I have my work in a local health food store, because I asked, how do I get my art up there? Because they feature artists, and boom, it's up there, and I made a sale. And
Exactly.
you just ask, you just take those initial steps that sometimes feel a little uncomfortable, especially if you're more introvert like me. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get in just sharing. And just I carry with me my greeting cards, and so sometimes I'll feel led to say, hey, I'm an artist, and would you like one of my greeting cards? And it's like, oh, wow. And then my Etsy store's on the back. So they'll take one, and that's a business card, but it's more than that. It shows them my art. It's a gift. It's a free gift. And that came about by just being in your group, and just like that idea came to me that I could do that, little things.
See, I
like
love
that.
that too, because it's like, some people think, well, I'm not an extrovert, so
Yeah.
I can never have a successful art business. But I mean, that's what I love. That's what you're saying. You would consider yourself more of an introvert,
Yeah.
but you're finding your way
Right.
of how to grow your business. And I think that's what I love about God's word. That's what I love about how the kingdom grows.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about being an authentic artist and teaching you how to connect with that. It's because I don't want you to be like me. I'm already me.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
I want you to be like you, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's what I think God wants for all of us, is that he's wanting to show us, okay, the strengths that we have to go with those strengths, because the way I see things in the paint, it's like, that's what I need to go with. That's my strength. And if I were to try to paint like somebody else, then it's not going to be authentic. We have to be authentically who we are, because that's really what people connect to in our art.
Yeah,
right?
that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lady come in the other day, and she was, I think I told this story on the live Q&A. You may have heard it, but there was a lady came in, and she was wanting to buy one of my pieces, and her husband saw another piece that was not mine, similar to mine, in my gallery, but not mine, and was wanting to buy it. She said, Matt, is this yours? I said, no, this is, some friends of ours that do this. And she said, oh no. She said, we're not buying that because that's not Matt's. It's pretty, but it's not Matt's.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, yes, connect.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Now listen, I think for all of us along the journey, of course, we're all maturing and growing in the Lord and that sort of thing. And I've often said that, one of the things that can be our greatest growing opportunities and challenges that come up for us is our own success. When things do begin to sell, when things do begin to go well, we can sometimes forget the roots, or sometimes that success reveals our heart in different ways. I know you kind of went through that.
I did
as well in this last season. Talk a little bit about how the Lord used, that process to, again, help grow you up even deeper in what he wants to do in your life.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this year, last year I had a really good year in terms of, I worked really hard and I did well financially. And so then starting this year, I thought, okay, I'm going to do 60 paintings in 30 days, and I did, and I was exhausted at the end of 30 days. And I, and I don't think God was in that. I think I just kind of ran with that. And so I was really striving. I found myself striving, and I thought, I'm tired. And what happened, I believe God lifted the grace for me to paint. I didn't even want to paint after that. And I was like, that was a little scary, and the joy to paint wasn't there. So that's got my attention. I thought, Lord, what are you trying to show me? What are you showing me? And I felt like he was saying that, you are not what you do. You are my identity is not predominantly, what I do. It's who I am, my relationship with him. And it's like, And he said, if you never paint again, I will not love you anymore. And it's like, that was just really getting that down deep really was a huge thing, and such a relief for me. And so I just resurrendered, my art, my gift, everything that I have to him. And I said, Lord, you lead me in this. I don't want to take the reins. You take the reins. And he has. And there's such a peace and a rest and a freedom in doing it that way, because he's opened doors that I couldn't never do. And right now, to date, I've done I think 134 paintings and sold, I think, 75. And that's more than I did all year last year in terms of the total paintings. But I don't feel like I'm, striving.
And we're just halfway through the year.
Yeah. But I'm resting in that. So and I think the key is just to stay connected to him, because he's the source. I mean, I know I can't do what I do unless he enables me to do it. And sometimes he lets us know that, you're like, okay, fine, you want to do it, fine, I'm not with you, and it's like,
I'll be here when you get
okay,
done with that.
exactly. Yeah. Oh.
Talk about the role of community in that process, because I think, one of the things I know a lot of artists struggle with is this feeling like they've, there's a deep belief that, okay, it's just me and Jesus, and
Mm-hmm.
I only need the Lord in this relationship. And of
Yeah.
course, He's our source and He's the center
Sure.
of what we do. The Lord's given us and designed us for community. Talk a little bit about that, because I know for you, you're such an encouragement in the community of artists within Create to Thrive. And how has that community and played a role in your own growth, and then
Mm-hmm.
also you seeing that happen as an encouragement into other artists' lives?
Yeah. So prior to being, a member of Create to Thrive, I was not really in community with other Christian artists, not in the way that I am now. And so I kind of saw myself as this, just got to keep doing it, keep going, but kind of a lonely, journey. And once I became a member, like this whole new world opened up. I mean, there's all these Christian artists. I mean, and they have the same calling, and that's huge, and so that for me was like, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not alone. And so when I'm down, there's always somebody that can encourage you. When you're up, you can encourage others. So we're doing this journey together. And it's not that I don't have Christian friends that are artists, I do, but there's something about the commitment in the group to, we're on the same page in terms of the lessons. We're on the same page as far as like, okay, showing our work and giving feedback, and we celebrate everyone's successes, and encourage when people are have a struggle, and that's just wonderful. I remember when I went to the mastermind 2 years ago, I was like, it was amazing to have people come up to me. You have people come up to you that on Facebook, but then they're live in front of you, and they're like saying, "Oh, I love your work. You're such an encourager." And I get to meet. It was like, wow. You don't realize.
I think it's just a reality.
Yeah.
So many of us. I mean, I know for me, I did my work as a hobby for 15 years. I never shared it with anybody. I just kind of worked by myself. I didn't really know any other artists per se. And it's like when you start to really understand that, hey, there are other people out there that are about the things you're doing, it's like this pop of energy and encouragement. And I think, the thing to me that's so encouraging, because, God having raised me up to raise up this army of artists and all that, it's like, this is not about just us individually. This is that we're all about and a part of something so much bigger that God's doing. And I think that's what I've loved about the mentoring program, is that you really get a sense that, wow, there are hundreds, if not thousands of artists all over the world that are going in the same direction, loving Jesus, linking arms. And it's so powerful.
It is very powerful. It is very, very powerful.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Deborah, what's next on your horizon? Because I know you got exciting things going on, and as you're continuing to grow in the Lord. And what's next for you?
Well, this weekend I have a 2-day art festival in York Fest, and I do that every year. I love doing York Fest, so I'm getting ready for that. And I've been asked to do they're going to have a night of worship. I'm going to be one of a few painters going to be doing that. There's a women's art retreat that I've been asked to do that's coming up, and an outreach in the city of York as well. I'll be doing pencil portraits with people, which will be fun. And then there's a very large women's conference in Hershey that I've been a vendor for the last 3 years, I believe, and I'll be doing that again. An open house in December here at my home. So there's always something to look forward to, getting ready for, and so those are some things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, amid your busy schedule and all that, I so appreciate you taking the time to share your story with me and all my podcast listeners and everything. If there's any just final words, anything that you would encourage folks in as they're on their journey, wherever they are, whatever kind of art they do around the world,
I would just say, stay connected to Jesus, stay connected to God, because he wants you to succeed more than you do, and he knows the path for you, and as we listen to him, as we take those steps, and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone if he's asking you to do that, because he's right there with you. He knows what you're able to do, and he knows what's in you more than you do, and he wants to bring it out so other people can be blessed through your work and through who you are in him. Yeah.
That's right. Well, Deborah, thanks so much. If folks want to get in touch with you, find out more about your work, that sort of thing, where's the best place that they can connect with you?
They can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook at Deborah Nell Art. And I also have an Etsy store, Deborah Nell Art, and a website, deborah.nellart.net. Any of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
See, that's good. Consistency all the way through. I love that. See?
Yeah. I learned that from you.
Good job, Deborah. Good job. So,
thanks.
Well, Deborah Nell, thank you for being my guest today, and thanks for sharing your story of transformation.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today on the podcast. Listen, I hope it's been a huge encouragement to you on your journey as an artist. Hey, also, before you leave, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other episodes of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. And also, be sure to connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or at my website, which is matttommymentoring.com. Until next time, remember, you were created to thrive. Bye-bye.